Mike Heading here. Today I've got another little mini banjo lesson for you. This time we're going to be talking about bending the strings. I'm going to show you kind of some basic techniques to do this and some spots where you can start looking for the basic licks. And there's tons of classic banjo licks that use these kind of string bending techniques, so it's a great one to have in your repertoire. Alright, here we go. Alright, so first things first, let's just work on actually bending a string, because first thing we need to do is just get the technique down. So let's start with our second finger, our middle finger of our left hand, and let's just put it on the second fret of the third string. And with the bends, I usually like to bend up. So you're just going to push the string up a little bit. You know, you're not going to hurt the banjo, so don't worry about, you can push a little bit hard on the string. And you're just changing the pitch. Hear that? And you have to feel how hard you have to push down to change the pitch. And don't worry too much right off the bat of, if you're getting up to the correct note that you want to bend to. We'll talk about that later. First thing is just getting the technique down. And you have to bend it enough that you don't hit the next string up, but you still need to bend it enough to change the pitch. And then you can practice bending it back down. Because when you do a bend, you can only bend up to a note, or increasing the pitch. You can't bend down. So if I even if I push the string down, it still bends the pitch upward. It's not up bends the pitch up and bending down bends the pitch down. They both bend the pitch up. So either way, whether you're pushing up or pushing down on the string, the pitch itself is still going to go up. So that's the first thing you got to remember, and that takes a little bit of practice. And you can just try it on different strings. It doesn't. Again, when you're first starting out, don't worry too much about what pitches you're bending. You just have to worry about how far do you have to do that. I would try it on the third and second strings. Your middle two strings. Those are the easiest ones to bend on. If you get on the fourth string, you end up, you get kind of close to the top of the neck of the banjo, which makes it a little bit tougher, not impossible. Same thing with the first string. You can do it, it's just a little bit trickier. So I would start with the second and third string. And again, just move it around. You can try it on your different dots. And you can bend up about a whole step or a half step. So there's two ways. You can bend it up. Again, you're bending it up about a whole step, so 2 frets. And again, it doesn't have to be perfectly in tune, remember. So, okay. So first thing, like I said, is just get some basic bending down and get the motion down. Remember, you bend it up and then you can bend it back. Like that, okay? So now let's figure out what notes to bend. Alright, now that you've got the basic bend down, let's look at where we can find some licks that use those bends. So same way we find our normal licks, let's look to our chord tones. Let's go up to our G chord at the 5th fret. So I got my G, and since we can bend up a half step or a whole step, let's look down a whole step from each of those notes. So we've got our G, so we can either have an F or an F sharp. That'd be 2 notes down. So that's a whole step down or a half step down. Same thing with our B note. So we can go an A or a B flat. So we're taking each of our chord tones and going down 2 frets. So that's whole step or half step. So any of those notes are where we can bend, and then we're bending into that chord tones here. So that's the note we want. It's our chord tone, our B or our G or our D. So those are our chord tones. Remember, G, B, and D. And we're looking at either a half step or a whole step down. Okay, so that's where we're going to look to find our notes. Because then, like I said, when we bend that note up a whole step or a half step, it's going to be our chord tones. So that's a good spot to start looking for our licks. Okay? So let's take the most famous bend lick. It's the up the neck break from Foggy Mountain Breakdown. That kind of little lick. Okay? So let's go up on the second string. We're going up to our 10th fret. And like I said, we happen to be at an A note. So we're up there. And we're bending that note up to a B. So that's why that lick sounds so cool. Same idea. We're taking a note, it's a whole step below our chord tone, and then bending into it. And the cool thing about that too is the right hand. So we're doing the Foggy Mountain roll. So you go. So you do index on the second string. Then your thumb of your right hand comes down. You do thumb middle. Then you go up to the fifth string and do 5, 2, 1, 5. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And there's other right hand rolls you can do with this lick, but that's the common one that you can start with. So try it first without the bend. You know, don't let that bend throw off your right hand. So try it with just putting the 10th fret down. So get that down first, and then practice bending it up, and you bend it up each time. Remember, you don't have to worry about if you actually physically get up to that B natural note. You know, sometimes with these slides and bends, the listener's brain will actually fill in the note for you, so it's more of an effect. You just have to kind of start them on the path, and then they'll actually connect the note in their head. So that's something you don't have to actually get it all the way up, especially when you're doing it really fast. Something like that. And you can practice landing back onto the 8th fret of the second string. Let's slow that down. Okay, so some songs you might hear that in, like I said, is Up the Neck Foggy Mountain Breakdown. It uses that lick. How Mountain Girls Can Love, you can throw that in there in the chorus. You know, you can fill that in between the vocal lines. It's kind of the definition of a banjo lick. You can put it in there in a lot of songs in a lot of different places. It'll also work over a D chord. It's probably one of those licks where, you know, when you first learn it, you'll go a little crazy, and then you'll finally scale it back a little bit and find those songs that it works in. Okay, so that's our first bend. And remember, we can do that in any key. So let's say we do it in C. You know, same idea. You can still, you know, take your note that you want. So in this case, it'd be a C, or an E note, excuse me. It's our third. We go down a whole step. You know, so you can do it in something like that. Same lick, same bend. So remember, if you can break down how we make these bends using chord tones, you can do it in any key. You can find any of your chord tones, so go to your C, you know, go down a whole step and start bending that note. You know, and it'll work and sound good. Sometimes you have to worry about the fifth string a little bit, but when you're starting bending notes, my best advice is just try it and see what happens. Okay? So now let's try it. So that was our third chord tone, so our B note. Let's see if we can bend up to our D. So a cool spot you can do that is up here, up at the 13th fret on the second string. So we got a C note. We're going to bend it up. And I like hitting the fifth string at the same time. It kind of gives it a little more bite. And we're bending through that note up into a D note. What's cool about that is we get a bluesy note there. So you can do something like... Okay, so that's again, same idea. We're taking that note, bending it up to the note we want, which is right up here. We're going down a whole step, and then bending into that note. Another little cool tip is you can put your first finger up on it's actually a D note, so the note that you want to bend to. So same note, and we're using that as kind of our pivot. And you can bend it up and then bend it back down too. Something like that. Or bend it up, and then hit the first string and then bend it back down. Then you can grab your G right here on the 12th fret too, on the third string. That's kind of a cool little bluesier lick. Or you can grab the 15th fret up here with your pinky too, sounds cool. That's kind of very, very Ron Block, you know, style kind of bluesier lick. You can do it down here too, it sounds kind of cool, you know. Something like that. Same idea. Again, take these take these ideas and move them around the neck. You know, I'm just doing different octaves, okay? So the last one we can do is take our note, you know, it's our G note, so our root, go down a third, or a whole step, so down to the F note. Let's do it up here. So we got our G, and this time we're going to actually go down the string, so let's go down to the 10th fret of the 3rd string. And then you can use that G note as your anchor. A lot of times with these bends, having an anchor note really helps. Same with up here, how we were doing that. So we can do that right here. So use your first finger on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. I'm using my 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the 3rd string. So you can bend it up and then bend it back down. And then I hit in the 2nd string, and then I'm bending it back down. You know, something like that. Or you can go up. It's kind of a good ending lick or something like that. Or it'll work good over a 5 chord. You know, you could do it over a D. Again, so I'm taking that same idea, I'm just taking that note on a different string. These bends are really good for getting you moving around the different strings. Something like that. So let's try that again. So one little other thing, let's do one more kind of bend. This is kind of a pedal steel lick. This one's kind of cool. So this one, you're up in your high G chord. And we're going to have to modify it a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your first finger off. You're going to put your 2nd finger on the 15th fret of the 2nd string. And then you've got your pinky up on the 17th fret. So you're basically playing those 2 notes except with your 2nd finger and pinky. That frees up your 1st finger to grab the 14th fret of the 3rd string, which is our A note, and then we can bend that up. And then you can pinch the top 2 strings. So I'm pinching index and middle there, 1st and 2nd string. And then you can bend it back down. And then you can grab the G note on the 17th fret of the 4th string with your 3rd finger. So you can bend that up. That's a very kind of pedal steel lick. And again, they're movable, so move it into D. Or, you know, C, it's a good movable lick. A good song that uses that is How Great Thou Art. Jim Mills, the banjo player, has a killer version of that tune, How Great Thou Art, where he does all these kind of pedal steel bends. It's really cool. That's a great song to work on your bends if you like that kind of style. So again, remember, all of these bends are related to our chord tones. So first thing you do is find your chord tones, you know, in whatever key you're in, and move down a whole step or a half step and start bending. And that's where you can start generating some of these licks. All right, hope that gives you something to work on. All right, good luck.